start off is phasing. I mentioned this in a comment a few weeks ago, and phasing is a wondrous thing, and it's a good way to perceive sound. This is all about perception of sound and acoustics. Sound. Phasing. Okay, sorry, I'm a bit sick. So phasing is when two sounds sound identical, or two sound waves are an identical sound. Their waves are similar, or read the same, and they counteract each other. They are the inverse of each other. And what this does is it equals out, and so you don't hear any sound. And this can have significant benefits and problems with your sound recordings and stuff like that. And this is going to explain why I very rarely use more than two microphones. So, because if you have a microphone facing a sound source is in the middle, and then you have a microphone facing this way at the sound source. The sound source is this microphone, and you have a microphone the other side, opposite side, facing the opposite way, facing into the sound source. So they're picking up opposites. The sound wave, especially if they are the same microphones, they are likely to have similar, if not near identical, sound waves and recordings. The only difference is it will be flipped. It will be flipped, and they counteract each other, which means that no sound comes out. But because the way and how chaotic the world is and sound is, two sound waves, unless digitally done, never sound exactly the same. What this means is that in most circumstances, if you have these two microphones, it doesn't completely counteract each other. What it does is it gets rid of some sound. It gets rid of... It starts sounding hollow in the middle, usually. Usually it's the very, middle frequencies that are the first to get cancelled out. And so it starts sounding very hollow and just empty, and something's just quite not right there. It sounds weird. And the way that you fix that is you inverse the sound, inverse the phase of one of the recordings, and that means that you are able to have both microphones. And it's a solution. But it's not a perfect solution. The more microphones you have in that situation, you have two microphones, and so you only need to worry about the phasing between those two. You can inverse the phase for one microphone. But because if you then have 5 microphones, or even 3 microphones, they are all having similar sound waves, and so they are phasing with each other and against each other. But inversing it won't, because they're not a perfect reflection of each other. You cannot phase or inverse the phase to fix this issue. And so you have to place your microphones in specific positions and in a certain ways to try and avoid as much phasing as possible. The best way to do this is to have them face at something. So you will see when I have my two microphones, they don't face inwards at each this angle, like pointing. They both point in the same direction. This means that they are on the same phase, and so they don't have issues. Because in the last video, I had this microphone as well as my two. This microphone has 5 mini microphones inside that all that face in each direction. I think it's GMs 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I think 1 upwards. I don't know where the 5th one is, but I know it's definitely 1 in each angle, pointing at each angle. Because it's a spatial microphone, it's designed to be able to sound very spatial, and you can place this in any situation, and the recording will sound very full, and it will be picking up everything from every angle and being able to position it where it has been picked up. It's very good at that. And so, but because it has microphones at every angle, you then are having 2 microphones that are facing towards me, and then 2 microphones that are facing away from me. And that is what will cause phasing issues. And so you can actually hear phasing in the videos, in that video. And actually one of the concerns of why I didn't think that the videos would do very well is because, to me, it sounded pretty bad. This microphone has a lot more static. It's able to pick up a lot more sound, and there were phasing issues. Another thing that means that between the phasing issues, so we'll continue. So phasing, some of the benefits of phasing are that when you, if you have in particular old songs, you can utilize this cancellation of sound to be able to pick out specific areas of sound in a song. And so in a lot older songs, where stereo is first becoming a thing, is that you are able to use phasing techniques by copying the song and inversing the phase in specific ways, and you are able to solo the vocalist, for instance, because usually you would have it where the left would be the guitar and bass or something like that, the right would be the drums, and in the centre would be the vocalist. And so if done correctly, you are able to just inverse the phase of the left and the right, but the centre is fine. Or the opposite way. That's slightly more easy, actually. I confess I've forgotten the specific technique on how you did it. I did it 3 years ago. I haven't done it since. But this is how, this is one of the techniques on how people isolate certain aspects of a song. So you might find like an instrument only version of Let It Be by the Beatles, and one of the ways that they would have done that is by using this phasing technique that is able to get rid of the vocals because of where they're positioned in the song compared to the other instruments. It's a lot harder now because we constantly dynamically change where instruments are in stereo. We usually have it spread over about left and right rather than all left or all right. Usually nowadays we'll have pretty much everything in the center, and then any additions. Like a drum kit, you'll have the kick in the middle, you'll have the snare in the middle, but you can have it slightly to the left or the right. You'll have the hi-hats. I think they're really nice if you have all the different cymbals and hi-hats spread across the whole left and right sphere as if you're surrounded by them, and the same with the toms. It creates a really full and dynamic piece. Usually a bass line is in the middle, keeps you centered. The vocalists will be in the middle, but their accompaniments will always be in the left and right. It's a lot more complicated, and it's a lot harder to use that technique nowadays for music. But in particular, old songs where they just started using stereo, you're able to use this technique, and it's a really cool technique to use. A very interesting perception of sound is that hearing the sound of something and then playing the sound of something, the same thing, but upside down, means you don't hear any sound at all. Sound is always perceived as a very physical experience. It's something that you just hear. You can't perceive not hearing something, if that makes sense. You can't perceive the knowledge that something is playing, that you should be hearing it. But it's not. And that is one of the magical things about sound, is that exactly can happen, is that it can counter itself. And if you shine two torches at each other, it doesn't get rid of the light. But you put two sounds against each other, it gets rid of the sound. And that's pretty damn amazing. Another little thing, as I've talked about phasing quite a lot now, I'm just going to talk about the perception of sound a bit. It's really interesting to understand that every sound that you hear, based on where you're positioned, how your ears are positioned, how furniture is positioned, how good your speakers are, how good your computer is and sound card, how you're listening to it, the quality of the audio file, any compression that's happened, literally everything. A leaf on the ground changes the way something sounds and how you hear it because of reflections, and we constantly are absorbing it. So it's a slight little leaf, a slight dust means that it reflects slightly differently everywhere you are. Every time you hear the same song in a different place, you are hearing it slightly differently. It's a lot harder when you're using headphones, earphones, it's directly in your ear. You're not getting the external factors, but also hearing is a very mind-based thing and very liquidy. It's a lot about liquid and the bones in your ears and how your brain processes the energy that is received and from those bones and the liquid. And so even then, depending on how you're feeling, depending on how much sleep you've had, could alter how you're hearing. In the same way that some days you might feel like you are struggling to see or something, or your eyes are feeling worse today, or your back's hurting today. It changes constantly, and that there is a beauty in that. The fact that sound is different experience wherever and whatever you're doing. And there's a euphoric moment in that you are experiencing something special, something rare. And it's near impossible to replicate. So leading on from that, let's think. I had another thought. So, this is something I found interesting as well. You might think that we know everything about sound, that we've been obsessed with music and sound culture, we've lived with it, we've been able to, but like light, we've only started to really understand what's going on with sound. And because of its chaotic nature, after the third reflection, it becomes impossible. After the third reflection, it becomes nearly impossible to calculate. So, the best way to perceive this, I've found, and especially if you play video games, is sound isn't a line. It's not a straight line. It's not a laser. Not like light. Light is also an area AoE. So sound is an AoE effect. Once a sound comes out, it bursts. It bursts in every direction all at once. And as soon as that burst, then it will outspeed. So at 333 meters per second, it hits in all directions. And as soon as it hits something, it reflects back and explodes. Again, another area effect. Every time it hits something, another area effect. But if you're thinking that area effect, that's effectively, if we do it in degrees, that's a three-dimensional. That's a sphere. That as soon as any part of the sphere hits something, that part of the sphere reflects, but the other part of the sphere is still expanding and still creating more reflections. And so you can do the core reflections, the direct. So because I am talking this way, or whatever, I am talking into the microphone, they direct. So that is the main projection. But it will spread up and it will spread down, and you'll be able to hear it behind me because it's been shot forward, reflected back. Like as soon as I talk, it's instantly reflecting off of here and reflecting forwards as well, which means that more, hence the direction, everything is facing forwards. If that makes any sense. So it's just a lot of area effects happening all at once, and then because energy isn't infinite, it slowly depletes. If it hits something, wood will also absorb, which means that some of the energy is taken through into the wall, into the door, and then can be released back out through the other side. It's also bumps, because bumps are rough, there's lots of different surfaces, it means reflections happen rapidly, and the more reflections that happen, the more the energy loses and disperses. The flatter your surface, so like a metal, plain, like a sheet metal, is a flat surface and isn't very bumpy, which means the reflection is like one reflection that happens instantly, and it doesn't take much energy. And so you can use this science to be able to develop sound-proof things or sound-reflective things to both amplify or to dampen sound. Hence why soundproofing uses foam and sponge. It's because there's lots of holes, it's lots of surfaces that it can reflect off of, and it just depletes the energy instantly. But you don't need to spend your money on soundproofing stuff, because curtains are very good as well. You'll also find that books are incredible sound depleters. So if you want a good or a nice sounding room, have a library. Hence why libraries are so quiet. Is that not just because of the rule, is that the fact that it's filled with books, it means that all sound is absorbed, that the only sound that you hear comes from you. There's no echo, there's no background noise because of constant reverberation of things from one person, from a computer or something. Is that everything is absorbed, and so every sound, every source of the sound stands out. And it's a really interesting thing to think about as you're walking along. You can think about how sound is reflecting off of everything, and how you're perceiving it. Most of what you perceive with sound isn't actually the direct sound. Most of what you're hearing is reflections. And so to experiment with that is also a very good thing. As I am ill, and I'm really struggling